INI files. I think that's what I really want to talk about the most tonight, is saving and loading settings with INI files using the Windows API. Talking a little bit about INI files and how much I love them. How much we all should love them because they're good. And just a few other things. I think we can add a lot of functionality to Typer tonight if we put our minds to it. This is a virtual machine. In order to get it set up quickly, this is the easiest way. I use VMs all day at work, and the reason this stream even happened is because one night I was just playing around with Windows 2000 in a VM, and I thought to myself, maybe I could stream this. And so it happened. Default INI location. I mean, there's a lot of INI files. I think, first off, I'm going to start the stream just by searching the computer for INI files. What if we just search? Search for files named star.ini. Oh, it got a lot of them. Look at this. So, if you'll notice, the type of the INI files in the Windows Explorer is listed as configuration settings, and that's what INI files are all about. .ini stands for initialization, and that's a computer word for start, basically. Yeah, I mean, that search is a pretty slow search, but there's not a whole lot of files on here. Again, let me know if I need to adjust the audio a little bit. So, what's in here? What are these files? Well, I see a VC++ stereotype INI file. The song is too loud. Might have a little bit of problems with the with adjusting the songs because these are all compo tunes. These are all songs that were written by people in around 1 hour as part of a competition. We call those compo tunes. And a lot of times the mixing is not that great. I tried to use replay gain to smooth it out, but it might not fix all the problems. So back to INI files. The reason I wanted to talk about INI files tonight is because I remember my first experiences kind of exploring my own computer when I first started using Windows 3.1, was looking at, all of the weird files that I found that I could edit with the programs that came with the computer. And if you open any of these files, they open up by default in Notepad. And so the computer, the Windows comes with a tool to edit configuration of stuff. So, and it did all the way back in the day of Windows 3.1. So when I was a little kid with that computer, we didn't have the internet. So what was I going to do? I had to kind of look inside every single file and see what it did. And you'll see that in these files, you've got settings, essentially. These files contain settings for programs, and the programs can look inside these files and get the settings out of them and write them back in. And you'll notice at the top here we have this part that's surrounded with the square brackets. And I'll turn the font size up just a little bit if you can't see that. Well, if you can't see that, then I don't know what to say, but the square brackets here at the top, that's the section title. And all of the values here, this last version equals 12.0. That is a key value pair, and in the middle is an equal sign. So what they're doing here is they're saying, okay, here are our compatibility settings. And the first compatibility setting that we're looking at in this INI file, I have no idea what it's for. It looks like it's for Firefox, is this last version key. And it specifies some value here. And that's as we go down looking through the file, you'll see these key value pairs here. And what I want to do tonight is open up our project Typer, our Notepad clone, and give it some settings. Write the settings to the file whenever we close, and load the settings whenever we start the program. So let's open up our project typer. And just, I have to say again, look at how fast this stuff loads. Just look at this. Damn. It's crazy. All right. Opening up typer. And I'm just going to press F7 to build it. And Control F5, I guess, is the hotkey to run it. Look at that. That's fast. I mean, I guess the program's not doing a whole lot. It's just like, how many lines is this? This is... I don't even have the line count on. What am I doing? How do I turn this on? Editor. Okay. I'm not gonna get distracted. So if anyone knows the location of the line number situation in Visual Studio, let me know. But if not, I'm gonna keep going. So typer is running. Came up pretty fast, and on our last stream we implemented the following functions. We did opening files, we did saving files, save as actually, and then we did our font dialog, where we can choose the font. Let's choose what's a great classic Windows font that's not fixed sys. Let's choose Papyrus. How about Tahoma, the Windows 2000 default system font. So if I type typer in here, and I type it in, what is it, 9 point bold? Uh-oh, we got some. Is that 8? Yeah, so we got the text up here, which is in our title bar. Tahoma. Essentially what they did is they looked at MS Sans Serif, one of their old typefaces, and they sort of tried to make a true type version of that, and it looks pretty good. Can we edit INI files in typer? We can, and we will be doing that in just a few short minutes. But right now I'm going to continue the tour of typer here, which includes our last part, the about dialogue. And if you'll look here, the contents 0.1 by Roger Clark, and with greets to EFNet WinProg and the Twitch chat. I think we're going to have to update this to version 0.2 later tonight. So that's what we have right now. And what kind of things does Notepad do that typer doesn't do? If we're opening Notepad, well, the icons look a little different. I think I need to import the 256 color icon. We don't even have an edit menu in typer, and all of this stuff doesn't exist. So we don't have that. We don't have word wrap support, and we don't have printing support, and we don't have page setup, whatever that is, and we never will, because I don't care about printers. I think tonight we're going to do saving the font setting after the application has quit. And when it's relaunched, we're going to save the font so that the next time we launch it, it remembers the font that we used. I think I'd also like to save some settings about the location of the window on the screen. So whenever we close the window, we can relaunch the application and it'll appear right where we want it to look. If we have time, we might even get to do some of these features like the edit menu, like copy, paste, delete. And I think that's probably all we would have time for tonight, but let's see how we can do. Tonight I also have brought some products to show off. I stopped at 7-Eleven on the way and got some Diet Mountain Dew, which, you know, I grew up in Appalachia, and Mountain Dew is a pretty much staple. People there drink it instead of water. That's how it goes. And Mountain Dew also released a new flavor, Mtn Dew VooDew 2019. I'm really excited to try this. It's a mystery flavor. Who knows what it's going to be. I think I'm going to crack open the Diet Mountain Dew right now. so I can get hype for the rest of the stream. Ah. Oh, this song is so good. Hopefully everyone can hear it. I don't know if it's too loud or not. Yeah, I should have brought Doritos. I think I have some around the corner now, if I think about it. I might go get those in a minute. It depends on how hungry I am. Okay. So, first order of business. What are we going to do? Save the font. Let's get to our code here. And so there's not a whole lot going on in Typer, if you'll see. We've got the entire application state is stored in these structures here. This app state structure, which currently has a value for the file name that we're editing. It has the window handle, the handle to the edit control, the instance, the icon, and the current font. And actually, some of these aren't even being used yet. And they will be later tonight. So this is essentially the data that we want to kind of write to disk using the INI files whenever we quit and load whenever we start up. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to look up the functions that we're going to be needing. So I'm going to open up MSDN. Look at that. It's so fast. Yeah, so Windows comes with some functions built in to read and write INI files. And these functions are called, the first one is get private profile string. And the description here says, this function retrieves a string from the specified section in an INI file. The function is provided for compatibility with 16-bit Windows applications. Win32-based applications should store initialization information in the registry. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm not going to do that, and I'll tell you why. Number one, the registry is a big pain in the butt. It's just... I see why they built it, and it's convenient for various purposes, but it's not exactly the most user-friendly thing, and it's just not necessary for our purposes here. It's too complicated. If we would go through here and explain how to use the registry, we would go over a bunch of irrelevant stuff that would not be entertaining to anyone at all. And what it says here about the fact that the function is provided with 16-bit Windows applications, what they're saying is they're saying that they want to get rid of this. They want to say it's deprecated. But Microsoft is known for they're known as the company that doesn't ever really get rid of any API, and that's a good thing, right? We want software to keep working. If you build something, it would be nice if you didn't have to change it every time the OS manufacturer decided that they wanted something to be a little different. And thankfully, Microsoft has kept this API around since the Win16 days, like a ton of other APIs in Windows, and we can still use it. So I think we're going to do that right now. Let's explore a little bit here, because it looks like there's some other related functions. There's get private profile int, which is a way of getting a setting for that's a number. Get private profile section. This gets all the keys and values out of a specified section. Section names. This API is great. Profile struct. I wonder how this works. Calculates a checksum. So I guess, is this storing some binary blob? I don't know what it's doing. But I don't think we'll be able to, we'll need the struct version. What does API stand for? API stands for Application Programming Interface. And basically what that is it's a name or a particular symbol that you use to accomplish a goal. when programmers are designing a library or an OS or a product that they want you to be able to write programs to deal with, they expose to the users usually an SDK or a software development kit that has facilities for accessing the software, and these facilities are called APIs. And like Cancel here in the chat is saying, it's a boundary between two groups of people working on software. The I, Application Programming Interface. So the I stands for interface, and that means that it's sort of the part between two other parts. So if you have Windows and you have Typer here, they have to be able to talk to each other somehow, and the API is the interface with which they do that. You know how we have the command line interface, or the human interface, or graphical user interface. It's the same kind of interface. It's just computers talking to each other, or computer parts talking to other computer parts. So there's a question: do these functions manage keeping a file handle open for you in the background? I believe that's what happens. I think what they're doing is either they're keeping it open and cached, or they keep some handle in the background, and it's just like, okay, if the program hasn't accessed this in a while, then we're going to close it. So what's the first thing that we need to store? So if you'll notice, whenever we implemented the font choosing dialog, all of that is done here in this block of code. Whenever the menu for the font menu item in the format menu is chosen, and we do that here with this choose font API, which shows the dialog. And here is where we take the result of the dialog, and we create a font object out of it, and we send it to the edit control, and we say use this font. Now, once we do this, you'll notice that this log font structure, this log font, what log stands for here is logical, and there's what that means is it's a structure that describes the font name, the font width, the height, the weight, all sorts of font properties. And then whenever we do create font indirect here, that tells Windows, okay, using this description, go find this font and turn it into whatever internal representation Windows needs to actually be able to render things. So right here is a place where we should actually be storing this log font structure. And if you'll notice, at the end of this function, or at the end of this block here, it goes out of scope. But if we keep a log font structure here in our document state, then we can keep it around for the lifetime of the application. So I just modified our document state structure so that it'll have a log font object in there. And now I'm going to remove it here. I'm going to make this choose font. Actually, I think I'll keep it, and I'll copy it in to our global one after it's done. Okay, so let's do memcopy. And the first argument to memcopy is our destination, which is app.document.font. And we are doing... And that should work. So now we've got our font stored globally. Okay. Now, whenever we quit the application, we're going to save the settings. So once the application shuts down, let's write a function called typer save settings. I'm going to assume for now that we actually go and choose a font, and so that this object will have something in it whenever we quit. Of course, in a few minutes, what we're going to have to do is use a default font whenever the application starts up, because right now it starts up with the edit controls default font, which is fixed sys, and that thing is ugly. Okay, what were we doing? So the counterpart here to get private profile string is, I believe it's write private profile string. What we're going to do, write private profile string. Oh, there we go. We got the IntelliSense. App name, typer, key name. I actually think, let me see how this even works. Where can you find C++ exercises to improve and learn how to code well? I would say, well, you can watch the stream, and you can look up, if you want to start from scratch, last time I was talking about this tutorial, the winprog.org tutorial. If you want to start Win32 from scratch, go to winprog.org/tutorial, and it's a pretty good starting point for, doing all the most basic stuff for the Windows API. Other than that, you're going to need some books. There's some great books. There's some good books. I don't know about great, but there's Programming Windows by Charles Petzold is the famous one. You wanna check that out. It's like this thick, but it has everything you need, including a bunch of stuff you don't need, like printing stuff. Okay, so what was I looking here? I was looking for the file name. So the file name actually matters here. App name. So the app name is actually the section. So let's use font. And the reason the app name is... So the reason this first argument here is called app name instead of section is because this API was originally used to access the only INI file in Windows that stored any settings until they actually implemented other stuff. Key name. What do we got? Face name. And what do? We got app.document.font.lf face name. Let's say typer.ini. Let's make that lowercase. So, like I said, if the application starts and we haven't actually chosen a font, then this is not going to have any value in it. But whenever I test this, I'm going to immediately choose a font so that this will have a value. Oh, we got an error. Cannot open typer for writing. Let's try to use it. Okay. How about Blackadder ITC? I've never even heard of that. I feel like this version of Windows came with so many fonts that I've never even seen. All right. Well, I'm going to close that. I'm assuming that this INI file showed up where the project is located, and the project's located in C Program Files, Microsoft Visual Studio, My Projects, Typer, Debug. Oh, it's not here. So I think we're going to have the full path. What does it say? What's path? If it doesn't contain a full path, it creates the file in the Windows directory. I don't think that's what we want. So let's use a full path. For now, let's just use the dumbest thing we possibly can. Let's write it to C typer.ini. Let's check the result here. Let's choose another one of these ridiculous fonts here. Californian FB. All right. Sup. All right. Looks like we wrote the ini file. We got typer.ini already. Look at how much progress we're making. So we got the face name already stored in here. And one thing that's important to remember about constructing a font that you want to actually use for any purpose, the face name is not enough. There's so many other parameters in here. Let's look in this structure, app.document.font. Look at all this stuff. We got the character set, clip precision, escapement. Have no idea what that is. The height. The height is kind of like the point size. It's not really the point size, but it's analogous. And we got the italic. We got orientation, a bunch of other stuff. So what we only really care about here is the height, the italic, the weight, and the face name. I think that's pretty much all we need. So let's write the other parameters down. So the weight and the height are both integers, so let's try the private profile string. Don't cancel here in the chat says don't forget about which display it's for use on in case there's mixed DPI on multiple displays. And that's a joke from having to deal with modern Windows where you can have multiple DPI settings, and I don't think that you could on Windows 2000. I think it was several years in the future before they added any kind of feature like that. But here again, I think I want to bring up the philosophy of building things for fun, is that you don't have to do it perfectly. When you're writing a program for work, assuming you are a programmer, if you're not a professional programmer, or if you just want to hang out and do something on your own, you don't need to worry about doing everything perfectly. What you want is you want to make something and make it however you want. If you don't care about the details of making sure that it works on every single piece of hardware, then don't worry about it. Just get something out. Write private profile int. Okay, looks like IntelliSense is failing me right now, but I'm assuming that the parameters are pretty much the same. Let's say font. How about the weight? Now let's extract a constant here. Thanks everyone who's watching so far. It means a lot. I I'm just trying to have some fun and maybe teach somebody something along the way. But this is what I used to do when I was little, and it made me love computers. And I think it's because, you know, this stuff was just so simple back in the day. Nowadays, you got like 8,000 different platforms. Back then, we only cared about Windows because it's the only OS anyone ever used. Let's say typer ini file name. Let's call it config file name. And the reason we're extracting that into a constant is because we're going to use it over and over again. I mean, there were other OSs back then. There was, you know, we had Linux and BOS, and we had Mac OS, of course, but, you know, Windows was what you used if you cared about games, and if you cared about development, and if you cared about having a fast computer. And let's just copy this straight up and add the same sort of thing for what was the other value we wanted to write. LF, the height. How about the italic? Is that what kind of what type is that? Is it going to tell me if I mouse over it? No. I'm going to look it up. Yeah, Windows 2000 is my favorite game. So it looks like italic is a byte, which means that it's some kind of value. There's probably multiple levels of... Okay, no, it's just true and false. Okay. I know weight, there are multiple... Fonts have multiple weights. How hard would it be to recreate paint? Not that hard. Significantly more work than recreating Notepad, but it's doable. Personally, I think dealing with bitmaps in Windows is pretty painful, so I'm kind of disinclined to do that. I was thinking about, you know, the future streams, what to do, and the leading contender right now is either IRC client or web browser. Okay, what do we got? Weight, height, italic. We're storing that. Let's just assume that all of these are going to be successful, because again, we're doing whatever we want. I do have a YouTube channel. If you want to check it out, it's youtube.com/c/rogerclarkonline. And just search for Roger Clark DDR on YouTube. You'll probably find me. IRC client. Yeah, so, hey Megan, welcome to the chat again. Yeah, IRC client would be really fun. Okay, what do we got? Let's build this. Got an error. Right, private profile int? Is that not a real function? Looks like it's not actually not actually a function. So what we can do is we can use a string formatting function. So what's the aim of this stream? The aim of this stream is to show what programming was like back in 1999, for me to recapture the magic of using operating systems and pieces of technology that actually do what they're supposed to do, what you tell them to do, and they don't do anything else. Okay. Let's write a convenience function here to write out a integer into the ini file. And we can just call it write private profile int. Everything exists in the global namespace. We can do whatever we want. What was this section? Key name, const. How about value? How about value string? Let's say 32. I'm not even using tchar. So Megan here in the chat mentioned an old Windows kind of macro hack that they used to support both ASCII and Unicode in the same code base. You could define all of your strings using the type tchar or tchar star, and with that, it would, on Unicode builds, it would use wchart, and on non-Unicode builds, it would just use char. But we're using Windows NT. All we care about is Unicode. Okay, so let's do WSPrintf, and we're gonna say %d with this. Okay, value string is our buffer, and this is something you wouldn't be using in a modern application. You don't really want to use a string formatting function that doesn't have a way for you to limit the buffer size. But again, here, we're not doing anything serious. So let's just use the easiest thing we can possibly use. And I think that's all we should need. Can't convert from char32. Oh, I see. Win2k does have WSNPrintf. It probably does have WSNPrintf, but I'm not using it. What's a good resource to learn C? Well, there's tons of books out there, but I feel like if you just open up a website, open up Google and search how to learn C, I'm sure there's tons of YouTube videos. I'm sure you could probably find a ton of tutorials out there. Just search C programming tutorial or C programming book. You could probably find lots of those online. Okay. So our program built. Let's just make sure what's going on here is what we think is going on. And like I said, we have to choose the font. Yeah, sorry about that. If I'm making the compiler errors unreadable. Oh yeah, I forgot about the, there's no, well, it looks about right. Those look like some ASCII characters. I don't know why it's not showing the, the actual contents of the string. Maybe that technology didn't exist yet in 1999. Okay, let's check out the typer INI file. All right, so we got -27 as the height for the font. Somehow that seems wrong. It doesn't seem right. I don't know what I could possibly have done incorrectly there, but if anyone has any suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to loading the settings. Typer load settings. So let's move this constant out to the global namespace. Let me know if you can hear the music, whether I should turn it up or down. Okay. Load settings. So with get private profile string. App name. See, I'm using the same string a lot. Should I define a constant here? Maybe I should. Typer. Config. Key font. Is this necessary? Maybe not, but it's definitely more hideous. Yeah, I'm not used to using this editor. It's a little, gotta say, it's a little primitive, but at least it's fast. Does Windows 2000 have _ SNW printf? It does. Maybe I'll change that here in a moment. Okay, let's look up the docs for get private profile string. Yeah, no one cared about buffer overflows back then. And I think it came back to bite everyone with all the viruses and stuff, but it was a simpler time. We didn't have to worry about all the stuff we have to worry about now. Okay, so get private profile string. The fourth argument is a pointer to a buffer, and the fifth argument is the size of the buffer. So I noticed in the chat there's some people asking questions about how do I learn this if I don't have a background in that. I would say, number one, don't ever assume that you can't learn anything. You can learn anything you want. You can do no matter what. Because of the internet, there are infinite resources out there for learning whatever it is that you want to learn. If there's something that you think that you need to learn before you can learn something else, it's probably not true. There's a lot of people out there who, for instance, are doing 3D modeling or 3D graphics who weren't good at math, and they just picked it up along the way. I would say do whatever you can to just dive into it and learn what you need to learn when you need to learn it. If there's something that a tutorial is talking about and you don't recognize it, search for that on Google and then you'll know it. Okay, so we've got a buffer here. What is the buffer size in this log font structure? LF face size. Well, it's nice that it just gives us that, so we can use it directly. And did we have a get private profile int? I think we did. Okay. Yeah, we do. And it even adds a facility for adding a default if you don't have one. I think the default weight, I think bold is 800, I think. Let's just look it up. Yeah, normal is 400. So we're using 400 as the default. And let's say typer config file name. Let's see if that builds. No, it does not. Function does not take 5 parameters. I thought you told me it did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Key name. Oh, default. All right, that's nice. We can just construct our default font right here. Let's say what do we want? Courier new. Song is way too loud. I'll just leave it at this level for the rest of the stream. If the songs are unhearable, then maybe I'll yeah, replay gain. You know, I thought it was gonna help. I don't know what the default height should be. Let's look up height here. If it's less than 0... Oh, so the negative value actually is useful. Let's just use this default, negative 27. Whatever that means. Oh, I see. Wrong line. What was that? Italic. What's the default value for italic? Man, this is way easier than I expected. And it should be 1 or 0, actually, because we don't want it to be italic by default. Okay. Looks like that should actually give us what we want. And so as we're gonna load this data here as soon as the application starts. I'm gonna do it right here in case we need this instance for something later on. So now this means that whenever our application loads, we will have a default font, and whenever we start up, we're going to have to give Windows this font information and say to the edit control that we should use the font that we just loaded, whether that was the default one that we specified that we wanted if it can't load it, or the one that we got loaded. So here we're going to do that in the wm create call. We are going to say app.hfont equals create font indirect. We're going to say app.document.font. And then we're going to set the font. And we're going to use the same code that we use down here. And for anyone who's familiar with Windows programming, you'll notice that there may be a couple resource leaks here. And we'll try and clean that up later, but for now it's not a huge concern. Okay. Now let's just start this up and see if it works the way we expect. I'm going to add a breakpoint here to make sure that we're getting what we think. So we got 700, negative 27, and whatever that was. I see. 255. So, yes, I do play DDR, and yes, I do post on Twitter a lot. If you're interested in Dance Dance Revolution, I got a lot of DDR videos, and I've also got a local organization for the Bay Area called SF Evolved, which we're kind of a promoter organization. We do tournaments and all sorts of podcasts and videos about DDR. So just search that if you want to find out more about my DDR stuff. I did not go to the Big Deal 3. I had some other stuff to do at the time. I'm going to go next year, though. Okay, so why is this italic value 255 when it should be just... It should be just 0 or 1. Someone asked me, is there much of a difference between C and C++? There's a pretty huge difference, honestly. C and C++ are pretty much distinct languages. We've got a ton of changes in C++, just an astronomical amount of features that go beyond the original C spec. And in this stream, we're sticking mostly to C features, but I didn't want to be too much of a stickler for the things that I couldn't quite remember that were C only. So the file has a CPP, which is C++ file extension, just so it would compile as C++. I'm not using many, if any, C++ features. If I do use one or two, it's probably the initializing variables in the middle of a block or something like that, but I'm not going to use constructors or anything like that. And that's another good point. Cancel in the chat says that the compiler doesn't conform to any standard, really. Visual Studio 6 is a kind of a language of... Visual C++ 6 is a language on its own. Diet Mountain Dew. Diet Mountain Dew. Okay. Yeah, I put that. I see. Okay. Let's see if this is what we think it is. So our app, our document.font, it's got a bunch of stuff in here. Still got that 255 in there. Let's see. So it remembered our font. So we pretty much have it working. It looks like there's a bug where the italic value is not being saved correctly. But we've already got INI file loading and saving for our settings here. And as you can see on the screen, we've got our font section, we've got our face name, key and value, and what kind of other things could we store in here? We could store the word wrap setting if we wanted to implement word wrap. We could store recent files. That might be a good one, like files that we've recently edited. Notepad doesn't have that feature. Maybe we could have that feature. Let's figure out what's going on with this italic value here. It looks hugely not fun. I think this stuff is fun. Honestly, there's not a whole lot of difference between this kind of thing and JavaScript and stuff like that. The differences mainly are aesthetic, and I would say that learning something like JavaScript is definitely easier than learning C, but if you really think about it, there's not a huge difference in terms of like the actual process of learning them. You still have to read a book or read a tutorial and, do pretty much the same things. You have to look and see how people do what they're supposed to do, and then you try and do that. You just follow a tutorial. And yeah, of course, yeah, you have to manage memory manually in C, but you also have to think about memory in JavaScript, and a lot of people don't realize that. And this is how we end up with web pages like Twitter and Slack and all sorts of other huge JavaScript applications, which are constantly leaking memory all over the place, because people think, oh yeah, this language totally manages all the memory for me. I don't have to worry about that at all. But you do, and seasoned JavaScript programmers will tell you that is true. The nice thing about C is that it doesn't even pretend like it manages it for you, for the most part, and you do have to think about it. So if you grow up writing C code and thinking about how the memory on your computer is actually being used, then you'll end up thinking about how the memory is being used in dynamic languages too, and your programs that you write in dynamic languages will be faster and better. So there's not really a good argument for avoiding this kind of thing. Again, it really depends on how seriously you want to take programming. If you want to to make a couple apps to just for fun, then maybe you don't need to do that. But if you want to be a professional and you want to be someone who is gonna be guaranteed to get a job somewhere, or you're gonna want to have a lifetime in the industry, you definitely need to think about the real computer science stuff. I'm not saying C should be everyone's first programming language, but you should probably learn it at some point. All right, so what's next after we've saved our file? Fixing the italic bug, whatever's going on here. So it looks like LF italic is just a 0 or 1 value. I think first I'm gonna clean up the choose font dialog and the reaction that we have to this. So whenever we are choosing a new font in the format menu, this code will execute. And right now it's creating a new font with the font that's chosen, and it's copying the font data into our global font structure. And then it's sending a message to the edit control with the new font object. What it's not doing is deleting the old font object. Now it is. And that should be good. I want to see the structure of this font once I choose it. See if it has. See what the value of the italic member is when it's just regular. Zero. Okay, let's see what it is whenever we save. close this INI file so we can look at it in a moment. Okay. Seems right. Typing. Cool. What about a font that's actually italic? It's 1. So that E in there is a deliberate typo. I promise I'm not dumb. Can't believe I have to explain that on stream. Well, I think it seems to be working, honestly. I don't know what was going on with that earlier. I think it was the cast that I made when I was I made an error, and I think I cleaned it up, so I think we're good to go on the font loading and saving. So what next? What can we do? I say we take a look in the resources, look at the menu, save. We don't have save yet. We have save as. We only have open. We only have open and save as. So let's add save. See, as you'll see here, it's unimplemented. And we can do this fairly easily by making modifications to the open file and save file functions. So once we've opened a file, we can store this file name in our global document state where it's in this file name variable. So we can do, let's do else stir copy. And there's the destination, and here's the source. And Cancel's he's gonna give me some crap for not using the limited version. And how about save file? So saving the file, we're gonna do the same thing where we copy the file name into our global state. And now, whenever we open a file or save a file, we're going to put that file name into our global state. And that way we'll have a file name in there that we can use whenever the user clicks save. That we can just say typer save file app.document.filename. And we can just save with the file name we already have. Of course, we're going to want to have to check first. So check to see if app.document.filename is valid. And we're going to put that off here for a moment. And do that in just a second. I've also got a LaCroix here, the pineapple strawberry. I like to keep multiple drinks around. You got to switch between the caffeinated and the non-caffeinated. Don't want to get too hyped. All right. It's difficult. whenever I'm sitting here talking to the camera, I am forgetting what I'm doing every 10 seconds. So I gotta make sure I remember what's going on. So whenever we first load the application, we do not have a file name in there, and it is null. So we can say if, what is it? What's the Elsterlen? Can we use that? Yeah. See, these L functions are built in to the Windows API. These are not the C library, the C runtime library functions. These are Windows API functions. So as I said, I don't think I've used any C runtime library functions except for memcopy, which, again, I'm going to assume is compiled to a compiler intrinsic, which basically means that the compiler probably has a really fast way of implementing memcopy, and whenever it sees that function in someone's code, that it pastes in some fast assembly code. It might not actually do that. I don't know what Visual Studio 6 is actually doing there, but we're just going to go easy on it for now. Okay. One thing that normal applications do is that whenever you save and you don't have a file name already, and nothing's going on, then it brings up the save as dialog here. So we're going to do, if the file name is 0, let's say if the file name is 0, let's just call the save as function. And how about let's move this save as functionality out into its own function. Save as. Let's say show save as. And now we can call that from two separate places. Remove the break here? Yeah, I could. But I want to be explicit here about what's going on. So let's do... I'll just swap these. Okay. That should work. So this means if we have no file name in our buffer, then we will show the save as dialog. And if we do have something, then we'll just save it right into the file name that we have. Let's add a breakpoint here and remove these. So shout out to Coda and Zymus and Dylan James, who have provided the music for this stream. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but they've all the songs are from 1 hour competitions of, you know, this is a tradition in the sort of the demo scene tracker community where a lot of people are you can hear occasional screams in the background. Okay, maybe I'll put the music in later. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. I wanted to say thanks to these guys, even if the users can't hear. These songs are from 1 hour competitions where people take a set of samples and try and make a song out of it. You have a 1 hour time limit. And that makes for a lot of interesting music. I'm turning it back up. Okay, so what do we got going on? Let's just type some stuff and say save. So we got no file name, which means we're going to show the save as dialog, and let's call it Typer Stream 2 Test File 1. And do we have that? Yes, we do. So that was just created. One thing I noticed also is that in Notepad, whenever you have a file open, it shows the file in file name here in the title bar. And we can do that too. So once a file is opened or saved, let's write a new function that says Typer file name change. File name did change. Do we want to be Appley? Let's do file name change. We can do multiple things in this function. We can use it in place of this string copy here, which we do in both the save and the open file functions. And we can also update the title of the window. We're going to use WSPrintf again. Let's say wchrt. Let's give cancel what he wanted here and a length buffer. What was the name of that function? _snwprintf. Let's say title. I'll just call it buff size. That's what I always do. Let's just say should I say max path? Yeah. Title buffer, buff size. SNWPrintf. There we go. %s dash typer. And then we're going to call set window text to app.hwind and title buffer. Let me know if you see any problems. This is Windows 2000 for anyone who is joining the stream and doesn't know what's going on.
That's Oakland, baby.
SNW printf undeclared. Uh-oh. Oh, it's SCDIO. This is a CRT function. I'm gonna have to say no to that one. Sorry. Sorry. We're back to WSPrintf. Let's just, I mean, I can make the buffer really big. Let's say max path times 2. There we go. And yeah, so in the chat, someone mentioned, Coda mentioned, why do I do the enum and not int? Number one, because it's a symbol that exists only at compile time, and two, Cancel mentioned that it decays to either it decays to essentially the type that you're using here. I could use const int, but I don't think the semantics. Yeah, I prefer using enum here. Okay, WSPrintf. Cannot convert. Oh, I see. Yeah, I was afraid that the compiler would still have would still allocate space for that for a constant. Not that I'm being too efficient here. There's a lot of inefficiency in this application. It's definitely not the fastest or the most optimized way of going about it. I think I'm going to take a second to open this Mtn Dew VooDew. Let's get a big view here. It's a nice Halloween flavored Mtn Dew. Wonder what it's going to be. Has a Skittles type smell. Taste test for Mtn Dew VooDew. This feels. I feel like this has got to be Skittles flavored. I don't know if they would do that. I think they probably would do something like that. I'll keep thinking about the taste. Try and analyze it. Yeah, I'm trying to live like I'm in 1999 right now. Okay. So the file name change function, it will take care of the state change whenever we change the file name. Let's just try it out. Here we go. We got it in the title bar here. We can save. I think we're good. Okay. So we added a couple features already. We added the ability to save files, or to save the settings for the application in an INI file. In this INI file here. What else should we put in here? We could put, you know, format word wrap equals 1 or something if we wanted to add support for word wrap. What else? I think one reason I like INI files so much is because there's not they can't be sort of like, they're not tree structured, right? They have a section and keys and values, and that's the only mechanism that you can use for organizing what's going on in an INI file. I think it's a very human file format. Maybe I just like INI files because that's what I grew up editing, but I just really like the fact that you can open this up, and even if you don't know anything about computers, it's very obvious what's going on. The language of the INI file is just in your face. There's not really much thought happening. I bet I could show this to almost anyone, and they would understand what's going on. Maybe not so much the weight and the height here going on, but I think it's relatively simple. Okay, back to adding features. What else should we add? Command line. We could add What else does Notepad do that we don't do? Asterisk for unsaved changes. That's a great idea. So we're going to add a value here in our document state, a bool saying has unsaved changes. And in order to track whether the user has made changes to the file or not, we're going to have to listen to events that the edit control is sending us. And I believe we can do that with WM command. So let's do edit control. Okay. How about I'll just search em something. Em undo. Edit controls overview. Shell and common controls, edit controls, here we go. Using edit controls. I think so the edit control sends us some notification messages. That's what I'm going for. En change. So we're going to look for en change, which is sent in the form of a WM command message. Let's do ID, what is it? En change. So the message includes the edit control ID in the low word of the W param and the handle of the edit control in the L param. Got to figure out a musical solution next time. How long have I been working with C? About 20 years, I would say. Kirby's Dream Course. OST. I think I've probably looped the entire Compo OST that I've packaged up here. I actually called it Win32 Stream OST Part 2. Kirby's Dream Course. There we go. So there was a question in the chat. How long have I been working with C? Since around 1998. I started programming when I was very young, and C and C++ were some of the first things I got into. I use C++ a lot, and I think it's pretty hard to use one without the other. I mean, obviously you can write a program in one and not the other, but if you have experience in one, then you're probably going to end up using the other at some point. Okay. Should examine each notification message. Okay, edit control identifier. So let's give the edit control an identifier, which we did not do already. Let's call it const uint typer edit ID equals 0x573. So here we're going to give it the ID in the form of this menu parameter. Was it typer edit ID? This parameter to create window EX, it's supposed to either accept a menu or an ID for the control. And the ID for the control is something that you can use. It's just an integer that you can use to refer to it later on, especially for these notification messages. Typer edit ID, I think I called it. So, notification equals hi word. So this is the hi word of the W param. Okay. So if notification equals in change, then we're going to track the change. Let's just output debug string here. Editor changed. Can everyone hear the Kirby's Dream Course music? Is it too loud? Welcome to the chat, Chris. What did I even add? Okay, I see. Oh, I should be debugging instead. I'm not even paying attention to the output. For anyone who's just joined, I am adding the functionality to, if the user has edited the file, we're going to add an asterisk to the title bar. Does Notepad do this? It does not. So we're going to have functionality here that Notepad does not have. Although maybe it does if you actually have a file open. How about... No, it does not. So I want to backtrack a little bit. Earlier I was talking crap about JSON, and by no means do I think that anyone should be using INI files to exchange data. I don't think INI files are a replacement for JSON, but I think that you might want to consider them if you were just dumping out some quick configuration. Okay, so we've got the editor got the editor change notification. And so let's say that app.document.has unsaved changes is now true. And so in response to this change, we're going to have to update the title bar. And this is where we're going to start getting into places where we're going to have to start getting into the idea of managing multiple state changes for our application and to do things in response to that. I can just do that same sort of trick where I, updated it here in the file name change function, but I might want to think about it a little bit harder to see if there's a cleaner way of doing this. So we can do typer update title. Let's say that's fine for now. Okay, so we're going to make a new function here. Typer update title. Let's say title bar. And here we are going to move this operation down here. And we're going to call this new function that we just wrote from our file name change function. And if app.document.has unsaved changes, we're going to do, what should we do? Asterisk, I think that was the request. Add an asterisk in here. We can say, how about suffix unchanged equals an empty string, and suffix changed equals a string that's just an asterisk. And we're going to put another string in our formatted, we're going to put another string argument in our formatted string here that's going to be our suffix. And we're going to say, we're going to add a, we're going to use the ternary operator to do app.document.has unsaved changes, question mark. We're going to say suffix changed. And if it does not have the unsaved changes, we'll say suffix unchanged, which will just be an empty string. If you're not familiar with this operator, the ternary or conditional operator in C, it's an operator that takes three sort of operands here, and the first one is the condition, which is a Boolean. Essentially, it's a value that's, if it's true, then the second operand here is used, and if it is false, the third operand is used. So this should probably work. Let's see if we got title buffer. Oh, I see. Yeah, in the chat, Josh here suggested that I should put the string, just the strings in line here. And I wanted to use these variables just to illustrate more clearly what's going on. I don't know if it's clearer, but to me it seems like if you don't know C, maybe it's more obvious this way. file name. Okay, update title bar. So we got the file name is stored in our app state. Update title bar is what we called it. Okay. So this doesn't actually handle the case of untitled, but we're just going to see how it's working right now. We're going to edit the file, and as we see, we have our asterisk up here that says that we've edited the file. If I press the Control-Z button to undo, I don't think we're not going to go that far, since we don't actually have much of a insight into the internal undo state of the edit control. I don't think it's really practical right now to take away the asterisk if we undo it all the way back to the unchanged state. We're just gonna, for now, leave it as is, where if the file has been changed at all, even if it's changed back to the way that it was, we're gonna keep the asterisk there. Okay. Now, we've got that happening. What's the last thing we should do? Let's add... It only has one undo. Yeah, you're right. Could remove it if the very next thing after any other edit is Control-Z. I'm going to pass on that for now. And let's do untitled, which is not being handled at the moment. So we can do this in update title bar. We can say const, let's say const wchart untitled equals untitled. And we'll create a pointer here that will either point to, let's say, wchart file name or untitled equals let's say, let's use the ternary operator again and say if the app document file name has length, if it's non-zero, then we'll use the file name. Otherwise, we'll use this untitled. I can just put it in line here. And we'll replace the first argument to WSPrintf, not the first argument, but our first string that we're passing here with, that used to be just the file name directly from our app state, to this new variable, which now either has file name or untitled if we don't have one yet. And we can also run this code, this update title bar code, when the application first starts. And this way, when we first start up, we will have a title bar that accurately says untitled, even though we haven't opened any files yet. I will post the code on GitHub. I'm gonna post the version 0.1, which was the last video, and I'm gonna post the second one as well. Oh, got something wrong here. Oh, I see. That variable doesn't actually contain our window handle because create window down here, whenever we're creating the window, hasn't yet returned from its... It has not yet returned. This program will run on any version of Windows. It should run on Windows 98, 95, and modern versions of Windows. Unless I'm wrong. In which case, we'll fix it. Okay, we got Untitled going. We got Untitled modified. I don't know if we necessarily need the modification indicator on Untitled, but we got it anyway. What else can we do? We've also got the case where whenever we open a file, we need to reset the state of whether we have changed the file or not. It lets you dismiss an unedited, untitled document. Yeah, you're right. So, we will need to... Let's add that feature. We'll prompt the user whenever the application is closed if they have unsaved changes. What's the wording in Notepad? Let's say testing. Text in the file untitled file has changed. Do you want to save the changes? I'll go ahead and say yes, no, or cancel. How about cancel? No. Yes, no, cancel. You've arrived at a fork in the road. Yes, no, cancel. Yeah. So when the window is closed, so when the user presses close, what are we going to do? We're going to say if app.document.has unsaved changes. Let's show a message box. Do I follow Windows style guide or non-stupid style? What do you mean by that? Yes, no, cancel. Yeah, it's ridiculous. How about, do you want to save? Save, don't save, cancel. Well, the problem with that is that if we wanted to customize the buttons, we would have to write our own dialog box. So if we just use the Windows message box function, we're not going to be able to change the caption of the buttons. So cancel in the chat here says it's kind of ridiculous when you look at this because the message that Windows gives you is, do you want to save the changes? Yes, no, or cancel. I know what cancel means here. In this case, cancel means just get me out of here. I don't want to deal with whatever you just asked me. I don't want to do anything. I decided I don't want to close. I don't want to do anything. And so if you press cancel, it just returns you back to the document, and you don't have nothing happens. If you press yes, then it does open up the save, and if you press no, then it quits without saving. But it's very confusing. It's just it doesn't really describe the problem. What these buttons should say is, do you want to save the changes? Yes, save the changes. or save changes, or no, don't save, or cancel. I guess cancel, or I'll keep editing, or something like that. But I think we're just gonna use the Windows version here, the Windows convention, because we're not writing a dialog box yet. What is it? MB yes no cancel, MB icon warning, I think. And if result equals ID yes, then we will do Alright, so we're going to have to break out some more functionality into a separate function. Let's say typer save or save as. That's not a great name for the function. What should I call it? It's typer save. Save or prompt. For save or prompt. I'm going to use that for now. You can always rename stuff later on. You don't want to get stuck on something like this too much. And if what it does changes, then you want to change the name of it. But the way I would program here on stream is much different than the way I would program at work, or if I'm trying to really think really hard about what's going on. Here, I'm trying to avoid dead space and just keep it going, because you don't want to just sit here and watch me like think for like a few seconds or a few minutes, get up and walk around and do something else, which is what I would do normally if I was thinking about an actual problem. VC6 does not, no, VC6 doesn't really have any like refactoring tools, but it's fine. Typer save or prompt. Else if result equals ID no, then let's just quit. Okay. So if the app has unsaved changes, let's prompt the user. Do you want to save? If so, we'll save, or we'll prompt the user to save at a specific file name. Or if the user chooses no, we're just going to quit. And if the user presses cancel, we're going to go back to the editor and nothing's going to happen. Let's see if it works. How about, let's open test file 1. Let's try and close. File has unsaved changes. Do you want to save? How about, what's going to happen if I do yes? Let's use the debugger here, and let's attach. Can we attach to the, yeah. So I have a application running, which I did not start under the debugger, but I want to debug it. So now I'm going to go to the Attach to Process menu, and I'm just going to attach to that process while it's running and start debugging it. Do I want to save? Let's say... Okay. Did I not... Well, okay. So much for that. What just happened? Oh, I see. I see. I see what happened. It literally... Yeah, so maybe I'm not going to use attach to debugger on Visual Studio 6. If I save, then it doesn't close. You're right. Thanks for pointing that out, Coda. If I save right here in this code, then it doesn't close. Let's add a variable here that says should close, which is true. So should close equals false in the case of ID cancel. Let's say if should close destroy window. This is even clearer than what we had before because now we don't duplicate this destroy window call, and we have a variable here which describes what we should do very closely. I'm just going to be explicit here and okay. Welcome back to the chat, Awesome Kling. I just also want to give a shout out to his Serenity OS project. If you want to see a really cool operating system project that's designed to mimic this era of computing, search for Serenity OS on Google. You'll see his project. It's really cool. Yeah, Visual Studio 6. I mean, it's got some bugs, as we just saw. The attached to process situation. So I attached to a process, and then it sort of unloaded my workspace and entered this debugging mode where it was as if I kind of used Visual Studio C++ like, you know, fresh and was debugging something without a project being loaded. And that was a little inconvenient. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to work, or I need a service pack or something like that. Edited the file. So I'm gonna do... So the file has changed. We're gonna prompt the user. Do I want to save? Do I want to save? I do want to save. So here, gonna do save or prompt. Do we have a file name? We do have a file name. We're gonna save it right now. And then we're gonna quit. Let's make sure the other options work too. Do I want to save? I'll just go ahead and say no. We're gonna quit. Was the file edited? It was not. And let's test out the cancel. Do I want to save? So it quit anyway. Why did it quit? Yeah, I mean, so Ash in the chat here suggested should close. Maybe it should be left undefined when it's being declared because in the rest of these cases, I'm explicitly setting the value. That's a fair concern, but yeah, I think this is kind of like a safe choice where if I added some other case and I forgot to initialize it, then we would have something happen. Maybe not the desired thing. Maybe I should say false actually, because maybe we should not save if we add some case later on. And yeah, that would take care of the yeah. That would take care of the case where should close false, and I'm a little confused. Oh, I see why. I see what's happening. So WM close. If we want to prevent this from happening, right now what it's doing is it's sending WM close to the default window proc, and in the case where we do not want to close, we should actually we don't need to do anything. We don't actually need to explicitly destroy it since the default window proc is doing that. If we should not close, if should close equals false, then let's say return 0. If the application processes this message, it should return 0. Okay. To answer a chat question, I am in a VM. Let's explain what's happening here. If should close is true, then def window proc will call destroy window. Okay, what do we got? Cancel. Should close equals false. Return 0. We're back where we started. And let's test out one of the other options to make sure we're good. Do I want to save? Yeah. Type or stream. Edit the file again. So we're good there. All right. What did we do tonight? What's the list of functionality that we got out of our text editor tonight? Let's say, let's use on delay mono. Tonight, what did we do? We got saving and loading font settings with .ini file. What else did we do? We added the file name to the title bar. We also use a star asterisk to indicate whether the file has been modified and prompt the user to how should I phrase that? The user to allow the user to decide whether to save when the document is closed. So that's pretty decent progress for just a couple hours. And our application typer here is moving along. We've got pretty decent chunk of the Notepad functionality already. We still are missing the entire edit menu. But one thing that's important to note is that in Notepad, the edit menu is kind of just there for people who don't know the keyboard shortcuts. If you'll notice, if I select this and then press Control V or Control C and Control V, I can still paste. I can still copy and paste. I can still select. Well, I can't select all actually, but I can cut and copy. So I can also undo and redo. So that means that the edit control already has the edit control. When I say that, I mean the Windows component that I use to edit text, the text editor sort of UI element. The text editor control already has all of this stuff built in, at least cut, copy, paste, delete, and undo. So if I wanted to add this, it would be very easy because I could just add menu items that directly call the editor functionality without doing any of the actual processing myself. I wouldn't have to keep track of what's in the clipboard. I wouldn't have to, insert it at a specific place in the text buffer. This functionality, the find and replace functionality, would require dialog boxes, which we don't have yet. We haven't done yet in this tutorial. And the go-to function also requires a dialog box. Select all doesn't require a dialog box, and insert the time and date does not require a dialog box. So if we wanted to add those, it would be relatively simple. And if you want to add them, you can. I'm going to be posting this code on GitHub. If you go to github.com/rogerclark, I will be posting the typer source code on there. I'll post the original version that we did in the last stream, and I'll post the second version that we did in this stream. And you'll be able to see the differences between them. How about adding a console-style info bar at the bottom with basic controls instead of the edit dropdown? Not sure what you mean by that. If we wanted to implement dialog boxes, we could also have a fancier about box. The Windows dialog box, the Windows about box is kind of kicking the crap out of us right now. It looks a lot nicer. Can have a big typer logo here. Oh, bumping the version. That's the last thing we need to do. Version bump. Version 2. I'm going to save this as typer progress.txt. Looks like saving doesn't actually clear the change state. So let's do that right now. Let's say app.document has unsaved changes equals false. Let's fix that bug really quick. Test it out. Make a change. Fix a bug. Let's save it. Oh, we got the asterisk is gone, and we can... Closing doesn't work. Let's fix another bug. Why isn't closing working? So making mistakes is an essential part of programming. You can't really make anything without making it the wrong way first. And you got to make it the wrong way before you make it the right way. So what could be happening here? If document has unsaved changes, let's say if document does not have unsaved changes, then we can just say should close equals true. Because if there's no unsaved changes, there's no harm. And there we go. I think Typer for tonight is, I think we're good to go. It's been a lot of fun doing the stream again and giving another tutorial on how to write Win32 code in pure C. It's what I grew up doing, and it taught me a lot about how computers worked, and hopefully it's been fun watching. I gotta say thanks to everyone who's been in the chat for the entire stream. Shout out to Cancel, shout out to Ash, Coda, everybody who's been watching, Stubens, Program Max. It means a lot because, you know, you can do anything else on a Friday night, and choosing to do this and hang out with friends online and, you know, be a part of making stuff is really great. Are the keyboards behind me for sale? Well, I don't think so. What do I got back here? I got a Real Force keyboard, which actually I think might have actually even came from Cancel. I've got the Real Force, I believe, uses the Topra switches. Here's a DOS keyboard. The unlabeled DOS keyboard, which uses, I think this is Cherry Blue. Some really old clicky keyboard. It's kind of sounds amazing. And nice rainbow situation here. So they're not for sale, but they are cool. On stream, I'm using this keyboard right now, which is the Nova Touch TKL, the Cooler Master Nova Touch TKL, which was a recommendation from Cancel here in the chat. The Nova Touch TKL is no longer being manufactured, unfortunately. Does anyone have any questions or anything like that? I think where I was saying thanks, I'll probably end the YouTube video. But again, it means a lot. Every single person who's watching, there's plenty of other stuff to do with your time besides watch people programming on Twitch. And I think that it makes me feel good that there's people out there who still care about this kind of stuff. I think, you know, looking back into computing history is important because history is who we are, and the systems that we built a long time ago are still with us today. Windows 10, the one that we use, that a lot of people use nowadays, is built on the foundation that Windows 2000 used to be, you know. And I think I said a lot in part one about how things have gone wrong and how I, you know, wish that they would have stuck with, you know, a more utilitarian kind of get out of the user's way and trust the user kind of philosophy. Instead, it seems like nowadays most OSs treat everyone like there's no chance that they could understand how their computer worked. And I think it's possible to get back to this level. I think it's just going to take a lot of people who care about computers making good stuff. You know, if you see a stream like this and it inspires you to make something, go make something. Especially if you don't know how to do something. I was talking about this earlier, but if there's something you don't know how to do that you want to know how to do, the internet makes it possible to learn. And it's no harder than going to YouTube and typing something tutorial. Even if you wanted to learn to weld, or you wanted to learn pottery, you know, the internet now, especially compared to the way things used to be when I was growing up, you know, when I was using Windows 2000 and developing Windows programs with Visual Studio 6, there were resources on the internet that you could use to learn from, and they were good resources, like the WinProg tutorial. But today, the amount of educational content online just absolutely dwarfs what we had access to back in the day, especially with videos. And it's easier than ever to learn how to do anything you want. If you want to be a programmer, if you want to be a musician, if you want to learn to, to sew or make clothes, or, if you wanted to learn to paint, do anything. You can just learn it. All you got to do is spend some time looking at other people's work, asking yourself how you can do it, or how you can do what they did. And eventually your mind is going to come up with, well, maybe I could do it this way. Or you can look at tutorials, really anything that you want to do. And I mean anything. You can figure out how to do it just by watching what other people did to do it and copying it, essentially. People don't give enough credit to just straight up copying what other people are doing. If you want to learn how to do Win32 programming, I would say, you could do worse than watching the last stream and just typing every single character that I was typing. That's how you learn, like when I was first learning to program, I would read other people's source code and I would just copy it character by character, and somehow it makes it into your mind and you figure it out. It's how you learn to talk, it's how you learn to walk, and you can learn to program the same way. You can learn to do anything. So please, if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter at rogerclark, here up in the corner here in the window title, and please follow me on Twitch. And I also have a YouTube channel where I'm going to be uploading this video, so check those out. Again, shout out to Stubbins, Ash, Awesome Kling here in the chat, and see you next time.